There we are. There we are. Good morning. Pardon me, I was having some technical difficulties again. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. And who am I anyway? I will be your host for the next hour or so. My name is Amelie Starchild. And we will be talking about. Actually, my name is not Amelie Starchild, but for the purposes of this show, my name is Amelie Starchild, and I will be your hostess as as we explore the questions, the deep questions of humanity. Who are we? What is our design? What is our effing problem on the planet? And how does this understanding of our design and ourselves and our nature, the object of the exercise, the nature of the field, how does all of that lend to a better understanding of our actual physical experience, our lives, our relationships, the meaning of our hopes and dreams? Who are we? And how does this whole system function? That's the question of the day. It's the question of every day. And I'm going to do my best to just sort of get into a non-resistant space and riff as best I can on these topics. As best I can. Now, I recognize, of course, that at the edges of all of this is still vast mystery. And so even though I'm trying to shine a light on certain parts of the board that are usually cloaked in darkness, still do I recognize that the edges are still mysterious and boundless. And I'm not for a second trying to take away the mystery and magic of the universe. Au contraire, I am trying to grant us back the mystery and magic of this blessed universe, because we really are in a very, very cool setup. However, if you are in this very cool setup and do not have the instructions and are just taking it at face value, what you see is what you get, kind of an interpretation, and trying to bang it out from a physical, conditional perspective, you're probably having a rough ride. And so, that's really what this show is all about, to try to give us a little smoother ride, a little better understanding of what we're doing here collectively, and how to get more of what you want by understanding the setup that you're in. It's dreamlike, or at least it's more dreamlike than you're probably giving it credit for. And the more dreamlike and playful that you can establish a perspective of the manifestation from a dreamlike or playful perspective, the more you can do that, the more malleable the material world becomes. It becomes more clay-like. Play goes to clay is sort of one of those formulas. So speaking of formulas, I did not do my show yesterday. I started to do it, but I just could not summon the energy resources to do it. I'm just sitting in front of my microphone going, who the F am I? And I don't know what to say about this, and I don't feel that good, and I'm kind of tired. And so I laid down and I took a nap instead. But then later, and this happens all the time, if I don't do my show as a show, then in some way, some opportunity comes up. Usually I rain it down on my husband, like if I don't do my show because we're traveling. Maybe, God help him if it's a driving trip, because then instead of going into the studio and doing my thing, I find, as we're on the road, I'm just blah, blah, da, 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 da. And we realized at one point, my husband's like, oh, I know what you're doing. This is your show, isn't it? And I said, yeah. So... so yesterday, instead of doing my show, it turned out I ended up doing some coaching sessions with my daughters. A real light coaching session with one, a little more serious spiritual counseling. Just spiritual as in what my counseling is. This is how it works. I do not tell people specifically what they should do. I have no idea what anyone should do. And only they can call it, because only they are standing in their position on the grid, facing the rest of the allness from their perspective, from their position, getting impulses from source from where they're standing. So only they can call it. But I do coaching on the formulas that I use to call my shots. If anybody's interested in the formulas that I use to help understand and calculate what actions I do, I'm more than willing to provide them. And my formulas or whatever are actually, I come at it from this is how I interpret what I'm looking at. And so from this interpretation now, how would I move? I don't ever knee jerk. I am the kind of person who really needs to get off somewhere and think about it. I don't just fly by the seat of my pants. And when I'm with human beings too long, I have to get back to my own self and process everything that has happened. I don't just, take it as it comes. And it's a good thing, too, because, if something rotten happens, I never, unleash right there. I always go off somewhere and then I think about the meaning of my negative emotions. And I never take them seriously. I have certain formulas that I do. It has to do with the stuff that we discuss on this show. I see our nature as thusly. And from that position of understanding the manifestation, the meaning of my positive and negative emotions, the fact that I am actually more than just my physical self with my hormonal knee-jerk reactions to my physical surroundings. I'm not just that. And, those reactions that you're getting, your emotional reactions to your physical surroundings that are coming hormonally. And by hormonally, I mean, they are reactions coming from your mammalian brain. You're getting reactions based on physical responses to somebody's in your space, and you get a protective response. Somebody's threatening your baby, and you get that response from your maternal instincts jump in. And it's all, I call it hormonal, but what it is that there is a physical component to the physical emotions, the emotional response that you're having. And that's coming to you as a reaction to your response as you're viewing your conditional world. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's only a tiny piece of the puzzle. And there is actually much more going on, much more that's you, much more that you even know about. I mean, much more that you know about. Not then you know about. There's a whole lot that you know about. Your inner being knows all about it, as a matter of fact. And your inner being is an aspect of you. And the inner being is actually my favorite topic. It's my favorite topic of discussion, and I want to just talk about it matter-of-factly. I don't want to talk about it religiously, and I don't want to talk about it secretly. And I don't want to be offensive about it for sure, but we seem to have a vibrational, broader perspective aspect of ourselves that is in play. And it's important that we calculate that into our calculations, because what it means is when we go into a state of negative emotion, the problem that has happened is not... So somewhere in there, yes, there is a condition that you don't like. Yes, that's true. And somewhere in there, there is also a condition that you don't like, that there is a chance that you might have somewhere down the road an influence on improving that condition. Yes, all of that is true. But it's not necessarily, it's not as bald as you might think about it, in terms of, I'm looking at this condition, it's making me feel bad, therefore it's empirically an off condition that I am observing. It is the problem, and it must change, or I can't feel better. You're kind of having that sort of a thing about it, when that's not what's happening at all. There's all kinds of things going on around us, chaotic and coherent, chaotic and coherent, chaotic and coherent, all over the place. The reason for that is that we don't know who we are, and we don't know how this dreamlike quantum field existence of ours unfolds. We don't understand ourselves. We don't understand our vibrational nature. We don't understand that we should be leading with the feeling that we want. We are the feeling in a material world. We are spirits, but the spirits are frequencies. Frequency, spirit, emotion, you could almost, they are almost synonymous. They're not exactly the same, but they're really close. We are frequencies. We are vibrations in a vibrational world. Sting could have written those words instead. We are vibrations in a vibrational world. And the vibration of it is telling us whether which direction we are walking. Our emotions are telling us, you are walking in a good direction, keep going that way. It's not necessarily saying that that condition out there is good, we like it. I mean, it could be saying that, but the condition is really a secondary effect. We shouldn't be leading with the conditions. The reason that we do that is because some 350, 400 years, depends on when you measure this. If you measure it from the time of Galileo, then maybe it's 400 years ago. If you measure it from the time of Newton, it's closer to 300 years ago. And, whatever. There was a moment when the church and science parted directions. For a while, they tried to occupy the same space, and the church was not thrilled with the direction of scientific view. And there was a lot of torture and pain and terrible things involved for a minute. And then the two fields parted ways. The two morphogenetic fields of inquiry or perception sort of parted ways, and science went off and said, we're just going to look at the material world. It was almost the material field of inquiry turns out to be all that science is really looking at. We'll look at the material world, and religion can look at spirit or, feelings or God or, the afterlife or whatever. The problem with all of this turns out that when you actually come back to this holistically, there's only one universe. There's one reality around us that is comprised of the components of scientific endeavor and the material manifestation, the rolling manifested world as it, rolls around us, as it reveals itself. There's that aspect of it. But then there's the way it feels. There's these frequencies. And as it turns out, and law of attraction and commercial physics and unified physics, I don't think anybody disagrees with this, that in some manner we live in a vibrational universe. We absolutely do. It's an oscillating universe. It's a pulsating universe. It is a vibratory universe. And there is... how do I want to approach this today? How do I want to approach this? Often, my main focus is on coming at it from an explanation of our emotions. Our emotions are really important. And our emotions are really interesting. And our emotions are not generally well understood by us as people, by us as society, by us as humanity. We do not understand our emotions nearly as well as we could and as we should, just from a general standpoint. As human beings, what are our emotions? They seem to be different from they're different certainly in intensity. They're different in our as humans, our ability to go off the deep end and take our emotions to wild extremes. That seems to be different than the other animals. Our ability to disconnect ourselves from source and go off on tangents that have nothing to do with the rest of the field. That seems to be a bit more human than the rest of the field, the rest of biology. Why is that? Well, I personally, if you know me, you know that my personal opinion about this is that possibly amongst other things, but I think we had at least one specific genetic modification somewhere down the road, up around 200,000 years ago it would have been, right about the time that our scientists agree that anatomically modern humans appeared on the scene somehow. We used to call them Cro-Magnon man. My personal theory about why we don't call them that anymore is that that's too hard to pronounce. And we are not sure we didn't know what that meant. Anyway, when you say anatomically modern humans, that means humans like us. When we appeared, whatever you call those people. Now, they were close enough to Neanderthals that they could intermate with them, as you would know if you had read Clan of the Cave Bear, which I did, as a matter of fact. But it's true. We were close enough to them. And what I believe happened is that somebody from off-planet, because unless there's something really complex going on planet Earth, like a full species developed. Now, there's no fossil records. There's no records. You can't find the development in the physical records, because that's not where it is. It is in the physical records, but it's not in the bones. It's not in the rocks and the rubble and the fossils. That's not where it is. We were genetically modified. Somebody tweaked us just a little bit, gave us a little bump, and what it did is it created a plumper, more advanced version of our neocortex, which is our overview mind. Our overview mind, that mind of our physical mind, that part of our physical mind, our physical brain and our physical skull, that one, that can see beyond the the knee-jerk reactions of the lower brain. So here's the diagram. Here's the diagram. You can find this online. It's all over the place. You can see that so the neocortex is that layer of human brain, that human mind, that gives us sort of overview, oversight, it gives you, it's why it gives us logic and analysis, rational thought, control of emotions, language, morality, all that stuff. That's all overview. The mammalian brain is coming from knee-jerk reactions, coming from conditions in the environment. Somebody attacking you, being angry about, somebody's encroaching upon your space or your resources, or threatening your child. These are causing my attention to focus in a particular way in my physical space, in reaction to things going on in my physical space right now. That's more what the lower brains are dealing with. The neocortex gives you this layer of overview and overmind, and that's the secret to the whole thing. Because now that you've got overview mind, now it matters what thoughts you think, because you already had an overview mind that you may not have known about. And actually, I hadn't thought about it. I didn't put my perceptual prowess upon it and ponder it for any length of time. I hadn't thought about it. But now that Abraham has made me think about this, I realize how it relates to concepts that humanity's been thinking about for a long, long time. Concepts like God and the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, there's all kinds of things that we talk about, but that's like a projection. Well, the God part is definitely a projection outward, and it's projecting outward to the vision of the allness that you're looking at and connecting to when you're thinking about that. But you're projecting it away from you. You're not realizing that your connection to it is rising from your very atomic structure. Now, so a lot of religions will talk about the Holy Spirit, and that is more the connection, the interface, if you will, between you and the divine, the allness, the whole thing that you're a part of. And the things that I talk about, they relate to this, certainly, but we're talking about it kind of in a different way, a little bit more matter of fact, a little bit more. We're going to relate it into mathematics at some point. We're going to tag it into human psychology. We're going to use it to explain the meaning of our negative self. It actually explains our positive self too. But our positive self doesn't need explaining quite the same way. Your positive self is just great. There's no problem there. When you are in your positive self and you're feeling good, yay. And there's not a problem. And if everybody was just always or mostly in their positive self, we wouldn't have to talk about it. We just wouldn't. But the negative self is a different matter. And the reason that is because the positive self is the one who is truly us. And so when we're being our positive self, we're being who we really are, no problem, And so there's nothing to discuss. But when we are being our negative self, that isn't who we are. And even the most ornery, rascally, outlaw, chaotic players on the board out there, the reason that they are chaotic players is because they are not listening to who they really are. They are coming from their negative self, and their negative self is a chaotic self. There's reasons why I like to label it the way I label it. I call it Loki energy. I call it Shiva energy. I call it demonic energy. It's actually daimonic energy. It comes to you as daimonic energy. And if your signals, your own internal signals, are not crossed to themselves, if you're not crosswise to your own self, offering up a chaotic signature to the universe because you are crosswise to your own energy. If you're not doing that, then then you are in a positive state and all is well. You're getting clear impulses from source and you're just banging around in this world nicely. That's what's happening, and that's what's mostly happening to the animals on this planet. The problem is us, of course. The problem is that we are allowing a negative self to barf, to vomit up its nonsense all over the planet without understanding what it is. We blame each other for it. We see each other going into chaotic spins contrary to social order, and we blame each other. We're like, it's you, it's you, it's you. And the way we've been trying to solve it is by, just trying to each individual that goes chaotic, we try to wrestle them to the ground and force them into cages, or we don't know, because we don't know who we are. But I promise you, humanity, if we would understand our nature and how it tags into this new understanding of unified physics, of course it would tag in. How could it not tag in? The universe is unified. And so all ideas converge in a way. Everything comes to a point. It all adds up. And that's a thing I call addition consciousness. As an individual, when you're trying to understand the whole world, you got to add the whole world up. And it doesn't mean you have to have every fact that ever was, because you can't. You only have what comes to you from your life and your light and your position on the grid. You have only what you come across, but it all has to add up. Everything that you come across has to add up. Everything that you are has to add up. And if you aren't adding it up, then I call that subtraction consciousness, and that's a different thing. That's a thing where you try to make it all work by, subtracting out certain aspects of it. And that's okay if all you're talking about is focus. Because you don't have to focus on the bad things. You don't have to focus on all of it all the time. As a matter of fact, you really can't. You can't cram you can't look at the negative vibrations and the positive vibrations at the same time from certain vantage points. You can when you get to, you have to click out to a larger scale, and then you can see more frames together. But if you're in your individual persona and you're in that scale of your perceptual life, then your focus is limited, and what you really need to be. It's all about focus. It's all about focus and attention, because that's literally the currency of the universe. It's focus and attention. And focus and attention of the being that you are is bringing about the material world that you see around you. And the being that you are is not just you, it's everybody else too. That's you at a different scale. Because you are these different scales. And the universe is these different scales. The universe is the universe at the quantum scale. The universe is also the universe at the universal scale. And you are too. That is the meaning of your inner being. The meaning of your positive and negative emotions is that you are two selves, and they are scalar to each other. One is your small self, and then one is your overarching, broader perspective self. It's your higher data flow, because you are a flow of data and information. And you are flowing your data and information with this broader field around you. And so now that you have this neocortex, you have this overview mind to your smaller self, now there is a relativity that comes up. This is finally, it's an issue. It's never an issue in the lower orders. If you don't have a physical mind that can mimic the ideas and the broader perspective of your higher mind, if you don't have one, then there's no possibility that there's going to be a conflict of vibrational frequencies within your impulse structure. And so you're just off to the races, always moving towards what source impulses you to do. But that's not what human beings are. Human beings have this neocortex layer, which is really rather interesting. Gives us our physical overview mind. And because of that, now we have a yardstick by which we can measure the validity of our thoughts. And by validity, I mean I'm going to call a thought valid, not just because it's true, but I'm going to call it valid if your broader perspective is interested in thinking about it. Because there's a lot of things that your broader perspective does not have any interest in thinking about, but you and your smaller persona sometimes get interested in thinking about stuff. And you think that you should be thinking about it because it's true, True. Things like people are monstrous, and did you hear what so-and-so did to so-and-so yesterday? Twice? In front of so-and-so. And blah 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 or whatever. It's just there is no end to the stories if you want to look at it that way. And it isn't that the thing that happened isn't true. It did happen and it is true, but there's a different way to look at this. If you were looking at the whole thing from an understanding of why so-and-so did such and such to so-and-so in front of so-and-so, and it was so mean and nasty and horrible, and everybody felt bad about it. But if you understood why that happened, it happened because so-and-so was all gobbed up in their negative self, having no idea of who they really are, thinking that it is their responsibility to stay homing that homing signal of negative beacon. I don't like that. I see that and I don't like it and I need to keep transmitting this. Because somebody needs to, or whatever. Why do we think we need to keep broadcasting this negative beacon? I'm focusing on this thing I don't like. It's because you don't know who you are. And who you are is so much bigger than that thing you don't like. Who you are is a magnificent vibrational creator of love and wonder and eagerness and playfulness and joy. We are here for the joy, people. Quit focusing in on all the crap. I get it. There's crap. So much crap. But do you know what? If we would instead of focusing on the crap that we have, if we focus on the magnificent setup that we are embedded in, combined with the amazing magical creatures that we are, and understand that the only thing that is ever happening wrong is that we're getting backwards to ourselves and we're focusing on a negative instead of focusing on a positive, because that's what our inner being is doing all the time. Now, the problem is that we know that. And so when we don't focus on positive, when we go negative, and we cannot get our eyes off of that physical condition that is causing us to go negative, we beat up on ourselves about it. Oh, damn it. Why can't I stop going negative? I'm such a yutz. I'm so lame. Oh, I'm such a bad mother. Why can't I get my shit together? Or whatever. You get into a negative and then you have nowhere to go to find your feet anywhere else. And you beat yourself up for going negative, and but the thing is wherever you are is perfect, is just fine. The object of the exercise is to understand who you are and the field that you are in. Understand what it is, how it's moving, who you are in it, how to turn in the direction of what you want, what is getting in your way. The only thing that is ever getting in your way is your own crossed energy. Your own crossed energy. So it's actually the beating yourself up. That's what's getting in your way. Quit beating yourself up. You are absolutely perfect. And at any given time, I don't care how badly you have screwed up your children, to whatever point they are. Are they in the womb still? Are they two? Are they in their terrible twos? Are they teenagers? Oh, god-awful teenagers. Are they budding humanity, blooming in their 20s? Are they millennials, almost as confused as you, boomer you? It doesn't matter how badly you have screwed them up to this point, because all you ever had to do, and it's still all you ever have to do, is line up with your inner self. And in the process of doing so, you will show them how it's done, how to hold on to your own emotional equilibrium when the world is throwing crap at you. You know, you're banging along in this physical world and it's crazy out there. People are all kinds of negative. And the thing is that these formulas that I'm talking about in my show every day for an hour, in my little personal meditation, I do this for every day. I illustrate how you deal with your own negative, the meaning of your positive and negative emotions, the meaning of other people's positive and negative emotions, because that's the other problem. The two problems that you have is you run across other people who are just so negative. You know, they're grumpy. They're grumpy. You can't cheer them up. They have all kinds of things to say about what's wrong with the world. They're all focused on whatever they're focused on. I want to try to find my way back to wherever I was. I was at Fireplace Cabin. Only it was no dog. It was the no dog one. This one. Just so that it ends up on the same screen when I close this out. This helps me remember which screen I used so that I'm not always using the same one. It's just a nice peaceful background back there. So the two aspects of negative emotion you have to deal with is other people's negative emotions, people who are just so negative and you can't get them off the negative, and then your own negative emotions when you just can't get over the fact that these people are so negative, or whatever. Those are the two main things, aren't they? And we deal with them all the time. And I have lots of theories about, how to fix all of this. I have a lovely whole quote that I got from Abraham. I've been using the last part of it as a quote, but it matters putting the whole thing in here, because people beating themselves up about not being as positive as you wish you were, because you know that only your positive self is real, and so your negative self isn't real, but you just can't get over the fact that this crap keeps happening in your conditional life, and I just don't like it. So this was the ending of a particularly good Abraham video that I listened to a couple of weeks ago, I think now. It's been a few days now. I'm not sure, but it goes like this. It says, feel glad for wherever you are and however you feel. It's really time for you to stop being mad at yourself for where you are, and for being glad. My eyes aren't very good. Stop beating yourself up. Stop being mad at yourself for where you are, and start being glad for where you are going. It's really time for you to start appreciating who you are and the focused environment in which you stand. You are where you are, and where you are is just fine. But where you are will not last. And the way you choose to feel determines the direction in which you move. And so there you have it, right there. You may be fine with where you are, but the fact is that you are moving. You are in motion. The whole field around you is in motion. And people who do not realize that, who imagine that you're in a static universe and you focus on objects and you kind of count on them to stay still, they're the ones who get nervous when things change. They do not like change. Most people do not like change. I personally have decided that I don't give a damn. Change is fine. I love change. Change is delightful as long as it always changes on the fulcrum of a spirit, that the spirit stays the same. Let's keep the spirit the same. And I don't care what the physicality is. I really don't. I really have no preference whatsoever about the physical manifestation of it, as long as the spirit of it stays the same. And the spirit meaning joyful, playful, loving, abundant, free, beautiful, kind, connected, all of that. Focus on the spirits that you want. Don't focus on the forms. Milton Mayer will tell you right away that that's a mistake. And they thought they were free. Do I still have this up? Would be great if I did. I think I have the Einstein quote up, not the Milton Mayer one, where he talks about, they had focused on the forms, and though the forms were all still the same, all comfortingly there, the cinemas and the holidays and the shops and the whatever, but right out from underneath of them, the spirit had changed, and they had made the lifelong mistake of associating the spirit with the forms. And they kept their eyes on the forms, thinking that would hold the spirit in place, and it didn't. It didn't. Now, that's me paraphrasing Milton Mayer quite a bit, but the Einstein quote that is so good, let me find that one. The one he says, I got a couple of Einstein quotes that I am very fond of, but this one has to do with the intuitive mind as a sacred gift. But he's talking about the two minds. And the source mind he calls the intuitive mind. And the physical mind he calls the faithful servant. And they are two minds. He says, we have created a, let's see, what does he say? The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So that's Einstein's little way of speaking the binary nature of this universe. I have another good quote of his, along with another one from Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith. And it speaks to the binary nature of the universe in the forms of science and religion. Science versus religion, only it's not versus religion, it's science and religion are these two hand-in-hand concepts that that you can't have one without the other, or the whole system is in balance and out of balance, excuse me. Einstein says something like, what does Einstein say about that? I have it here on my wall. I wrote it, a sort of rudimentary art project I did back in my early 20s. And then my daughters framed it for me later because they knew that it was so important to me. It was just a torn old form that had a pool tournament, the double elimination structure on the back of it for a pool tournament. I used to shoot a lot of pool. So science can only ascertain what is, not what should be. Though religion may determine the goal, it nevertheless learns from science, in the broadest sense, what means will contribute to the goal's attainment. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. And so basically what he's saying is science is the study of the material world, and religion is the understandings of the intuitive mind, and you need one to understand the other. The religion determines the goal. Religion has to do with where we're going, the motion of life, the meaning of it, the object of the exercise, all that kind of stuff, which is more esoteric. Science is just studying the physical world. That's kind of what Einstein was saying there, but you need both of them, because without science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. So now the better quote actually comes from Baha'u'llah, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. That's how you pronounce it phonetically, Baha'u'llah, but I have no idea if that's how he really pronounces his name. My thought is probably not. So he says, science and religion are as the two wings of a bird, and the bird is mankind, which cannot fly on one wing alone. For the wing of science, if it lacks the insight of religion to balance it, leads to materialism. And the wing of religion, unguided by the reasonableness of science, leads to superstition. And isn't that just perfect? That is just perfect. We are two minds. And the work of Nassim Haramein in his mathematics and physics laboratories is showing us why we are two beings. It's actually different scales of the data flow that we are. So you have your smaller data flow right here at the point of your position on the material grid, your eyes on the ground, you have that level of you. as a biological being at that scale of the flow of information that you are, but you also are the whole thing, and you have access to a flow of information that includes the whole universe. And it is your inner being. It is your broader perspective. You really, really have it. And from this position, what makes sense to you is a win, 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 win position. You know, it would be lovely to be in a position where we're getting tired of all the winning. That was sort of making fun of something President Trump said. The problem with President Trump and all of his winning is that he's still playing a win-lose paradigm. And that's what we all grew up with when we're my age and older, which he is older than me by 20 years. No, it's not 20 years older than me, but he's a lot of years older than me. 15? I don't know. How old is that man? His problem is that he still imagines that we're living in a win-lose paradigm. And he kind of has to keep playing it that way because people around him are playing it that way. And nobody wants him to win. And I certainly don't want him to win if that means that all of his enemies... Well, I don't want him to win in a win-lose. I want us all to win in a win-win. But you know what? One of the biggest problems with that is the righteous out there do not want their enemies to win. You know, you don't want all the people who are in prison for having effed up to win. You don't want them to win. You don't want the Japs or the Nazis or the I don't know who do you call your enemies? Your ex. Your ex. You don't want your ex to win. You know, you'll take it in the teeth 1,000 times in order to make sure she does not get anything. She does not need to win. She wronged me. Or whatever. You know, that is one of the biggest obstacles. We do not want our enemies to win. And the problem is that the actual paradigm is not win-lose, it's win-win. And so you've got to suck it up. If you want to live in a world where all of us are peaceful in nature and in loving cooperation, in open-minded allowance of well-being and freedom and beauty and joy, and everybody minding their own damn business, minding, and what is that business? It means minding your own alignment. It's alignment, it's alignment, it's alignment, it's alignment. It's nothing more than alignment. At the beginning of the day, it's alignment. At the end of the day, it's alignment. And all through the day, it's nothing but alignment. And every problem that you have with yourself is alignment. Every problem that you have with somebody else is your own alignment. And it might be their misalignment, but the fact that you even picked it up from that position and it's bothering you, because if you are truly in alignment, then you see their misalignment for exactly what it is, and you know exactly what to do about it in order to help soothe and encourage them back into their social order, back into the flow of the allness, back into their own alignment, back into the good timing and the things are always working out for you recognition. Things can always be working out for you, but if you are standing in the opposite direction, flailing and griping about some specific something that you can't get your eye off of, then you're not going to pick up on the cues. You're not going to actually hear the great ideas as they drop into your mind. They're there, but your chatter is drowning it all out. So I have no idea where I am in the hour or where I am in anything. It looks like I am coming up on an hour. I have no idea whether anybody was ever with me in the room as I did my little riffity riffs, as we talk about our nature. Who am I? Who am I and what to do about it? What do I do about my own negative emotions? They might even be slight, you know? I might be generally okay. I'm contented, I'm satisfied, but sometimes I fall into, what are the ones on the edges? The border states. The border states are things like boredom, overwhelmment, frustration. That's the border state. And from there, you can start flying into lands that you don't want to navigate. It'll be interesting. You take your starship over there and you see what the world looks like from that angle. You won't like it very much. Your emotions are an indication of which direction you are flying your ship, because you are flying your ship. You are in motion, and the whole universe is in way more motion than you think that it is. It's actually, we are all collectively, we're going the speed of light. We really are. You add it all up, I'm sure of it. I'm sure that that's what it adds up to. You add the spin of this Earth to how it's going. The Earth is orbiting the solar system, and then you take that one around the galaxy, and then you take the galaxy around the cluster, and then the cluster is spinning around the supercluster, and then the supercluster is churning like a smoothie around this universe. And if that's not enough to do it, I bet it is. But if it's not, then all the universes have some relationship to one another, and I'm sure that when you add it all the way up to all the way, we are all moving at the speed of light. And the whole thing has to do with a relationship between each other, a relationship to the spin that is collective to us, and then your own little individual one that you get to spin however you want. The only advice I would ever give you is get into alignment with your greater spin and spin in harmony with that somehow. It's not a specific hardline path that like a destiny that you must fulfill, and it's demarked in a very specific way. It's kind of a general thing. And there's lots of choices. Lots of choices. How do you want to have fun with it in this iteration of yourself? I think it would be a lot more fun as human beings if we understood who we were, and instead of playing it the way we do, play it the way it's really going to get us what we want. And what we want is freedom, ultimate freedom. Everyone wants freedom to walk their own path, to call their own shots and choices. And I'm telling you, moving towards a greater understanding of who you are will help show you that you are free to do the one and only thing that you ever wanted to do in the first place. Nobody could stop you if they wanted to. And as soon as you get lined up, then from that vantage point, you don't see yourself in conflict with anything else in the universe. You only see all the choices in front of you, and you realize that all you have to do is choose. And immediately, all the ideas about how to make that happen and what it would look like, what the steps along the way would be, start dropping into your brain. And the impulses start, and you're off in that direction. Is that what you want? And so the question is, what do you want? What do you want? Not what do we have, and especially what do we have that you don't like? Let's focus on that for a while. No. That's a complete misunderstanding of the equipment. Although you're not wrong. Yes, we have that, and yes, we don't like that. Yes, you're right about all of that. What you're wrong about is you don't understand how to change it. You cannot change it from what you don't like to what you do like dependably and smoothly and optimally. You can't change it from what you don't like to what you do like from any other place. than from a position of taking clear impulses from a non-crossed energy perspective. I see I've just made it. I'm just a few seconds under an hour. I'm going to go check my chat room real quick just to see whether I have anybody with me. I'm considering today changing the title of this video. Just I haven't been doing that because I've kind of wanted to be anonymous. I have not really wanted people. Let's see, where am I? Here I am live. Oh, I do have somebody in the... Oh, and I have some comments. Yes. Things are constantly moving, and the way you choose to feel is determining the direction in which they move. And it's I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and as soon as I mentioned the word boredom, she went, "Oh, I hate being bored." And I said, you know what? Most people are like that. They would prefer momentum over alignment. Absolute alignment. What I have been doing for the last few years is I've gotten almost completely still. And it's like alignment or nothing. Alignment at all costs. You know, even if I'm sitting here doing nothing, I am in alignment. So what I've discovered is a video game that I play. It's silly like Candy Crush, but it's not that. It's called Bubble Mouse. And I play it and I listen to videos on the side, you know, that make me feel good. I do a lot of old sitcoms. There's certain ones that, you know, I still laugh right out loud. You know, Cheers, Frasier, Andy Griffith's Show. Certain ones that I associate with positive feelings from my past or whatever. I'll watch the news in funny versions like The Daily Show or Stephen Colbert's monologue or something, but I can't bear to listen to the headlines of the news from like news studios where they're all scary about it and all upset about it and all focusing on the wrongdoers and what's wrong with everything and how these people are bad. And, you know, I just can't even take it. I'm like, no, that's not it. So anyway, let me finish reading. Let's see. What are your thoughts on people that believe they are a walk-in, basically not the same soul that incarnated into their current human meat suit? I don't know if I know about this. A walk-in, basically not the same soul. So like a cuckoo, like somehow they've replaced the legitimate one. It's about balancing the logical and intuitive, masculine, feminine, etc. Let's see. Comparing is our downfall, yes. But like you say, none of it is wrong. We're playing the game and learning what works. That's exactly what we're doing. And that's one of the reasons how come people tend to prefer motion over boredom. Because you have to watch it play in order to understand what it's doing. And so what I had a tendency to do for all of my life, my astrological sign, for those people who are interested in this sort of thing, is I'm a Cancerian. And what I have always had a tendency to do is I go out and I live life by the seat of my pants, and I do it for a little while, for a minute, an evening, a week, a space of time, whatever the space of time is, and then in some manner I retreat back into my own Cancerian bubble and I translate, I reflect on it, and I ponder, did that work? Let's see, I did all of this, and I responded in this way, And then it turned out, that kind of. So I had at one point when I was a teenager, and I was very impressionable, and I was in love with this young man who actually, he was a dork. And I'm sort of glad that he dumped me when he did, because I ran into him later, and I'm so glad I didn't end up with him, although I'm sure he's a perfectly delightful person. But he dumped me, and it was really unfair the way he dumped me. And we had been really good friends. And he was kind of harsh, saying, it's over, whatever. And it was probably time that I left the small town where I was, staying with my mother for a few months, tail between my legs, come back from the big city. That was the Phoenix area, back up to the small town in the mountains, and, hung out with my mother for, and I worked, and I whatever, but it was time for me to go back to college and all that. And so his dumping me was probably the best thing that happened. But I remember in the moment, I had this surge of feeling. I wanted to be mad at him, and I wanted to express in this angry way. And I didn't. Instead, I went really soft, and I wished him well, and I said that I was sorry that it hadn't worked out better, and I wished him a good life, and I walked off from it in that way, in a much softer way. And oh my gosh, he came back at me years and years later and told me what a profound effect that had on him, and how deeply sorry he was that he had ever let me go. It was the dumbest thing he'd ever done. And I agree with him. It was the dumbest thing he'd ever done. It's the kind of thing, though, later I reflected on that, and I went, oh, isn't that interesting that I did not knee-jerk to the negative, but instead I took this other path, and look at how that worked out. And I did that over and over and over throughout my life. That's a lot of how I came across a lot of these rules. And then the internet started bringing me, YouTube and stuff started bringing me teachers. And before that, books had brought me teachers that seemed to resonate with these general rules that I had noticed, that when you're acting from your negative self, it really is like you are backwards to your true self. And you really are. You're backwards to your true self, and you can be considered crossing your own energy stream. And that is the only problem that any of us ever have. It really is. That and not having a clear understanding of reality, the shape of reality, so that you have a good internal, visual, imaginatory fulcrum point to start from. I know that's the wrong word. Anyway, I'm well over an hour, so I need to get going. Today is bowling day. And so I've got to go off and have myself a fun day until tomorrow, when I may or may not make it back into the studio. I do it on impulse. When I feel like doing it, I come in and do it. It's a lot of fun for me. It feels really good to do it. It's the only reason to do it. If I was coming in here to do it to fix a broken, sad world, then I would not be connected to my source, and it would not work. I would be giving you the wrong message. But if I do it for the joy of it, for the fun of it, because my inner being wants this platform to speak. If I do it for that reason, then it all turns out very well. And I have no idea what I am moving towards in my life, but as long as it feels good, I know that that it will end up okay. And I'm talking emotionally feels good, not necessarily sensually feels good. Sensually feels good is a different thing. Something sensually feeling good it's not necessarily a red flag, but it is also not necessarily a green light. It has to feel emotionally good, the thoughts that you feel about it. So actually, I'll tell you what I think about. You asked a question, and I'll tell you what I think about it, because I don't really know much about it. your question was the thoughts on people that believe that they are a walk-in, basically not the same soul that incarnated into their current human meat suit. That question, that's an interesting question. And what I think about that, it all depends on, is that a fearful thing? Is that a thing that they're scared about? Or is that something that's an interesting thing that in exploring it, they could ponder implications of greater capabilities or broader understandings? And that's the key. If thinking about it is something that makes you frightened, ooh, there could be, somebody could, incarnate and jump into my body, or see, I don't really know what this concept is, but how you feel about the thoughts have everything to do with whether you should keep thinking them or not. Because just because it's true or not true does not that's not why you should be thinking about it. It's whether or not it resonates with the moving data flow that you are. Are you resonating with it? Are you building constructive waves of energy? Are you building the energy? Is it becoming more? Is that what's happening? And if so, then keep doing it. And if you feel yourself scattering inside, feeling, your wholeness dissipate as you go into fearful states, if that's what's happening, then don't think those thoughts. You may be able to think about that concept, but if you think about it from a fearful place, then you're walking into fearful places. Your emotions really are telling you the direction that your light soul is moving from a conditional perspective, because you are both. Anyway, so perfect. In that case, if it's interesting to think about it, then a near-death experience and seem to have more knowledge when they come back. Well, that's fabulous then. That's fabulous. I don't know how we can ever exchange information. I know one way I can is I can learn how to put links into my video. I know that people can do that, and I don't really do that. One of the reasons is I have been focusing on my ability to smoothly just keep delivering, to lock on to this field of information that's pure positive from within myself, tagging into all the things that I find interesting, and then just flying with it. And so the tech side of it, I have been less, I haven't been working on it so much, but I know that I can share links with you. That way, you might be able to just put them right into the chat space. I don't know if you could do that, but at some point our relationship may evolve. What also may happen, I'm considering doing it today, changing the name of my video so that people can actually find me. I've sort of been hiding in a dark corner of the internet, practicing my delivery style, and it's not the easiest thing to sit in a room all by yourself and talk about everything in an excited way, touching on relevant things and holding the focus. It's not the easiest thing. It's been a couple of years working on my ability to do that. And now I'm thinking, am I ready? Do I really want people? Yeah, you did find me, and I so appreciate you, because it keeps me from being from just being alone in a room talking to myself. It helps me focus, because we are all in this together. I am you, and you are me. I am you from this position on the grid, and you are me from your position on the grid, and everybody's like that. And it's so cool. It's so cool. So I guess I should quit, though. I've been at this a long time. And until tomorrow, when maybe I'll be back and I hope you'll be with me, I love you so much. And until tomorrow, as always, may the source be with you.